She left Guyana a teenager while still in high school for uncharted territory, a new world as she called it of walking on ice, learning to ride the elevator, and finding herself while achieving her goals beyond the other side of fear.
When you are a new immigrant to America, it is extremely difficult. You know, that's one of the things that I don't think is addressed a lot, is how difficult it is to assimilate into American culture. You know, there isn't a welcome party that says, here you go, welcome to America, let me show you around. So for a small town girl that I went to school with maybe a few hundred kids, to enrolling in a high school with thousands of children. I mean, thousands. So I had never taken the elevator before in my life. Here I was in high school in the Bronx, and I was living with my aunt and my grandparents at that point. So many of us living together in one house because we didn't, you know, we're starting from scratch. I came to America with no money, with just a suitcase of clothes. All of those small little hurdles, if there's anything that I took from it, it was that I need to study, and I need to change this experience. Even if I don't have any friends, I'm going to be smart. If I don't make any friends in America, at least I'm going to be the smartest person in my class. So I studied very hard because I wanted to stand out in a different way. To get into law school, you have to take this LSAT exam. They sell these LSAT prep classes. Those courses are thousands of dollars just to study for the LSAT exam. So I remember thinking that there's no way I can afford all of this right now. So I bought the books, the LSAT prep books, and while that year, between 20 and 21, I would take the train to work in New York City. I would study my LSAT books, and I ended up taking the LSAT exam. When you start the application process to apply to law school, you start receiving recruitment materials. So schools from all around the country would send me recruitment material. Come here, come here. I remember Ave Maria, the school that I ended up going to, sending recruitment materials. And Florida is beautiful, you know, living in a sunny, beautiful environment that wasn't so fast-paced as New York City. And it's, in a way, it reminded me of Guyana.
The former St. Joseph High and Annandale Primary School student has carved a path for herself, one that entails helping thousands of immigrants gain legal status in the United States. Indera DeMine, a former New Yorker, now residing in Fort Myers, Florida, has been an immigration attorney for the past 8 years. A highly successful attorney who was awarded by the American Institute of Legal Counsel and American Jurist Institute one of the 10 best attorneys, was also recently honored by Hodges University in Naples, Florida, for outstanding woman of character, courage, clarity, and commitment. Indera has also appeared on Fox News, NBC News, and Fort Myers NPR Radio, among others. Other awards include 40 Under 40 and Woman to Watch by Gulf Shore Business Magazine. Indera's clientele are largely Haitians, Hispanics, and Guyanese. She explained to the Guyanese Diaspora News from her Florida law firm, which she runs with her husband, also an attorney, that several changes have come into effect beginning February this year, which undocumented immigrants filing for legal status through marriage to a U.S. citizen should be aware of.
Under the Obama administration, let's say I am married to a U.S. citizen and I want to adjust my status. I want to gain legal status based on my marriage to a U.S. citizen. Under the Obama administration, the focus would have been proving that this is a real marriage between me and my U.S. citizen spouse. Are you guys living together? Are you sharing bills together? Are you sharing your lives together? What documentation do you have to prove that this is a real marriage? Fast forward 4 years later, under the Trump administration, you absolutely still have to prove that it's a real valid marriage. But now, beginning of February of this year, you must also prove something called a declaration of self-sufficiency. The United States government now wants you to prove that if you are granted a residency card, a green card, that you are self-sufficient, that you're not going to become a financial burden on the United States. This is now a new form that has to be filed along with your marriage petition. The new form looks at your assets, your liabilities, your educational background. Have you ever had any type of governmental assistance? Do you have a credit score? Do you have health insurance? Have you ever had any governmental assistance in healthcare, such as have you gone to the doctor and now you have an outstanding healthcare bill? Do you speak English? What is your language proficiency? This new form looks at a number of factors to determine whether or not someone will be a financial burden on the United States once they're granted residency. Now, this form is brand new. It just came out in February of this year. It's 18 pages long. It requires you to document everything. So if you say, under my assets, I have $1,000 in my bank account, I own a piece of land in Guyana, so I'm going to use that as assets, you must show that. You must show the deed for the land. You must show the value of the land. You must show your bank statements to show you have that money in the bank account. You must document your education, that you've graduated high school. If you've gone on to college, you must show your bachelor's degree or your associate degree or higher. If you have outstanding bills, let's say you have credit card debt, you must show that to the government. So this new form is very document heavy. So what used to be a simple filing is now hundreds of pages of filing to comply with this new form. The form came out at the end of February 24th. Coronavirus hit in March. So all interviews have been canceled. So interviews have not resumed yet. So we don't know how local immigration offices are going to interpret this new form, but it's definitely important that people be aware of this new requirement.
But what about if you're working and undocumented? Should you file your taxes?
Filing taxes is very good. I always encourage my undocumented clients to file taxes. Taxes establish a few things. One, it establishes good moral character. A lot of times people think that if I don't file taxes, the government does not know that I'm working. That is not necessarily true, because if you're an able-bodied individual and you're not in school, the government knows you're working. How are you surviving, right? So if you're working without legal status, at least file your taxes to show, yes, I work, but I've declared my taxes. So taxes show good moral character, and I encourage people to file their taxes. Another thing that taxes does is that it establishes your ties to the United States. The way I explain this to a client, if you're ever in deportation proceedings, right, and you filed 10 years of taxes, you have some U.S. citizen children, you bought a house, you have assets, you have a bank account. It is versus that one person versus another person who doesn't put their money in a bank account. They don't file taxes. They might have children, but they don't have evidence that they've been here all of these years. It would be easier to deport that person than it is to deport the person that's been contributing to the economy, right? So taxes shows good moral character, but it also establishes your physical presence in the United States.
And what about those immigrants who came to the U.S. illegally? Can they still gain legal status? And what does it mean if they have to return to their home country to conduct their interview?
Depending on how you entered the United States, so if you entered legally with a visa, or if you entered illegally by using someone else's passport, by crossing the border, or as Guyanese people say, backtrack, right? So depending on how you entered the United States, that will determine your pathway to legal status. So if I meet with a potential client, I'm from Guyana. I came here 10 years ago, and I came here backtrack. I now met someone who's a U.S. citizen and we're married and I want to gain legal status. I hear that story all the time. How do I gain legal status from this marriage? I explore all options with my client. Do you have a child at a particular age that wants to join the military or is thinking about it? If so, that might be a pathway. Let's say nothing of that sort. I'm just undocumented. I came backtrack and I want to gain legal status through my spouse who's a U.S. citizen. Then your process is a 3-step process. Step 1, your U.S. citizen spouse will file a petition for you. It's called an I-130 marriage petition. Step 1, you get your marriage petition approved. Once you have that approval notice, step 2 is you need to waive your illegal entry. This provisional waiver came out under the Obama administration. And it's still in place right now, and we're still making use of it. Once you get the approval on your waiver, the 3rd step of your case is that you have to return to the U.S. consulate in your home country to do your interview. Okay, now this is the scariest step for everyone because I'm telling my clients you will have to return to the U.S. consulate in Guyana to do your interview. And that's a very scary prospect for so many people. However, if you're going back to Guyana to do your interview and you already have your waiver approved, so you've already waived your illegal entry in the country, then you're in a good position to get your case approved. I do not send clients back to home country for them to get stuck in their home country. And I've never had anyone be stuck in their home country. They're able to return to the United States with their immigrant visa and their green card is mailed to them. I've sent clients back to Guyana, China, Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Ecuador, you name it, we've sent clients, Chile. And as long as you have the waiver approved before you return to your home country to do the interview. You do not return to the home country until your interview is scheduled.
And now because of COVID, some interviews are being waived and requests for additional evidence is being requested.
These requests for additional evidence are for cases that are they're at the field office. They're ready now for that interview. But because of COVID, their interview was canceled. Instead of rescheduling them for a new interview, the immigration officer is saying, just mail in whatever evidence you have of the marriage, and they would make a decision based on the evidence you submit. 99.9% of the time, they approve it. With the evidence you submit, we don't need an interview. So yes, this has recently begun happening.
What advice does she have for those undocumented immigrants?
First thing I would say is don't break the law. That is the main way someone puts themselves in deportation proceeding, especially here in Florida. Secondly, I think it's highly important that if you are working, if you work, file taxes. If you're getting an income, file your taxes. Third, I tell all my clients to document things and establish ties to America. A homeowner, you own a piece of land, you own a car, you started a small business, whatever it is, the more I can show that, it's hard for someone to say, no, deported, right? So if you're an undocumented person, start establishing those ties to America and establishing my home is here, because it would be harder to deport you at the end of the day.
And although her practice is in Fort Myers, Florida, she has clients in New York and Pennsylvania and can practice anywhere in the United States.
The short answer is yes, I can represent someone anywhere in the United States. Even though I'm licensed in the state of Florida, immigration law is federal in nature, and it allows me to practice law anywhere in the country. I do have clients in New York, and I have clients in Pennsylvania, and just out of the state of Florida, so I can absolutely do so.
For the Guyanese Diaspora News, I'm Jennifer Jabbar.